Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Gamey Daddy channel. So, timelines are in order in today's conversation for Tom Clancy's The Division 2. A lot has happened. Tom Clancy name is getting a free-to-play avenue that Ubisoft wants to use to kind of maybe try to break into the market. Also, another Tom Clancy mobile game has also received announcement that it's going to get shut down. To add to that, one of our developers that is in the Ubisoft massive pipeline that worked on the Division franchise is also leaving Massive. And then again, if you want to kind of add to that, you have to also consider that we now have a new community manager for the Division. So all of these things we're going to break down as much as possible. If you're driving, kick back, relax. Don't worry about commenting though. Comment later when you're in a place where it's safe to comment, and just let's dive into all of this. So Nicky Coupens is a senior designer, or was a senior designer on the Division project, and he put a tweet out saying it's been a weird past year or so with lots of change, and it is with some sadness that I'm saying that I'm leaving Ubisoft Massive. The Division games, dev team, and community will always have a special place in my heart. More on what's next soon. So he's leaving, and that's pretty much that. Now, there's also some further talk that he may still be with Ubisoft as a publisher, and so he may not be leaving the entire Ubisoft pipeline, just moving on to a different project. Now, for some, this may signal, oh, the Division is dumpster fire, people are leaving and jumping ship left and right, and I say to that, that is just premature freak out. Relax. If one senior developer leaves, it doesn't really mean that everything is going to tank. In fact, what you might want to say is you want to be watching for who the potential person working on another Division game, I'm talking about the head in that project, you have to be watching out for that person. If Yannick put this post up, then I would be the first person to tell you that, okay, I think the Division is going to be pretty much in the back burner for another extra 2 years on top of the 2 years that we're waiting on. So probably no Division stuff till 2025 if somebody like Yannick was leaving. But as long as Yannick is still sitting in some Ubisoft studio somewhere, still on the payroll, and is able to, have that title of Associate Game Director of the Division 2, then more than likely there is still going to be support for this game and even potentially another game down the road. We have to talk about these things. So I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I talked about the Division Heartland project. The Division X Defiant project, which is a free-to-play game. I didn't even talk about Heartland. Heartland is also another game. But you really have to take a look at what Ubisoft is doing right now. So Ubisoft is exploring the free-to-play model heavily. In fact, they're pushing a lot of it using the Tom Clancy name because I believe they want to actually get into that market. Now, this is new terrain for them when it comes to these free-to-play type shooters. I mean, yes, they've done other things that are not necessarily, brand new in terms of how to leverage things like these. Yes, you can actually play some other Ubisoft free-to-play games that are available, or games that have some sort of a very skeletal model and then you start buying stuff after you get into the ecosystem. But largely, there are people who are thriving better than them and they want to get into this market. Please note that because they're trying to get into these markets, it doesn't mean that they're going to throw away their established protocols and established communities and established player bases who are already waiting paying customers just to go pursue some free-to-play thing out there. You see, this is something that companies have been known to do. Yes, sometimes they'll do it. They'll pretty much take, something that's already established and ruin it. But I don't think Ubisoft is at the point where they can really afford that. Already, the publisher is stretched out across many projects. This is what really attracts a lot of their investors. A lot of their investors are attracted to their very, very well-established franchises like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and even the Tom Clancy games. Now, if they want to go ahead and try out these free-to-play models, these are investments that are that they're trying to make right now. They're preliminary investments. And I strongly believe that they want to use the opportunity to see if that market is viable for them. But nonetheless, that does not mean that they're going to throw away their Division games or their other Tom Clancy games, which already have huge customer bases that are just waiting to purchase those games. Not at all. For those who have asked the question about the Splinter Cell game and where that game is, I made a video and I talked about where I believe that game is and how that game might be in a development spiral because of some unforeseen circumstances. In fact, some of you even said that the person who played Sam Fisher is no longer wanting to do that because they had some personal things that they wanted to deal with that I don't want to mention in this video. So when you add all of those complexities together, that game just happens to have an unfortunate, a series of unfortunate events that hit it. So it's not like Ubisoft is not trying to ship you a Splinter Cell game. It's just the Splinter Cell game has undergone so much. You can watch my video here on the channel where I talked about some other, relevant issues like the creative director or one of the people who was a creative director in the Splinter Cell pipeline moving over to Warner Brothers. So it's like you got to get somebody that can actually ship the game, who can run the team. And so those kind of people are usually hard to come by. They're not easy to find across the board. So that's one aspect. When it comes to the Division, I think that Yannick probably is working with the team on potentially another Division franchise. And if not, then, who knows? Maybe they'll be working on something else that they feel is more profitable. But again, I think the conversations that we have here in this community are very important to all of this, because you see, when the community is actually talking and raving about a game that they like, I think the developers know this. The problem is publishers don't necessarily always have, in my opinion anyways, a pulse on what their community is doing. Sometimes even developers don't have a pulse on their own community. But I think you have to give it to massive Ubisoft. Their developers know what's up. I think this is the reason why you didn't see the Division 2 end abruptly. I think this is why you saw that wave weirdness happen, where the publisher more than likely wanted to end the project because they're the ones, shelling out the money for them to be able to work on the Division any further. But then down the road, it seemed like maybe some of the developers and even some investors within the pipeline thought that it was too premature to try to end the Division at that point. And so I think that is why that's why they had to eventually backtrack and promise more content down the road. So our developers pretty much are in a place where if Ubisoft as a publisher wants to move forward with another Division game, they have the possibility and propensity to make it. But here's the thing, Ubisoft Massive is already kind of stretched as well. As Avatar and Star Wars are going to be, games that are worked on, we're going to see that they're going to, pretty much divert as much resources as they can to ship Avatar on its due date. A lot of the technical resources more than anything else. Money people don't necessarily, consider when you're making an open world game that's going to run smooth. You really need a lot of technical experts, people who are very good at the technical side of video games to make that game run the open world and everything and all its elements smoothly. So they might channel all of their resources there, but that doesn't mean that the next project is going to be immediately Star Wars. In fact, the Star Wars project is still at its infancy. I believe that if they follow the same pattern for developing the Division 2, that Division 2 game might even be way further progressed than even, say, a Star Wars game. I think a Star Wars project is something that's going to be going on, say, potentially after the Division 3 or the next Division game. Or who knows, Heartland might be the filler. Heartland might be the game that actually holds us off, and then we can see potentially a Division and a Star Wars game come out similar release windows. But again, think about this. These companies would chase the dollar anywhere it needs to go. Anywhere they feel the dollar is, they will chase it down. So yes, when you see them doing their free-to-play stuff, it's them just chasing those dollars. And for them to leave the Division, as a franchise or other Tom Clancy franchises is illogical. So eventually what will happen is the free-to-play models might pan out to be much more monetarily. They might actually be more profitable than the Division overall. Hey, if that happens, then we're not going to see many Division games down the road. But some of us already know that it doesn't really look likely that the Tom Clancy fans really want to play these free-to-play games, and the broader market at large is into other games like Call of Duty and Battlefield. So who knows? They might eventually wake up from their sleep and say, you know what? It's not worth actually chasing all of this, nonsense. Let's stick with what we know, and let's find ways to expand these universes and take them further down rather than having to recycle things all over the place. A game like The Division 2, just so much unplanned and things that weren't necessarily, that they didn't necessarily pay attention to. If they were to make The Division 2 again or another game according to its scope, I think they're going to understand that a lot more is at stake. So the buck is on them. They made the decisions that put the Division where it is right now, in my opinion. Now, yes, you have to also consider for what happened in 2020, the medical issues, those also affected things. But again, there were some decisions that if they had made smart moves, they would not have been excessively affected by the things that happened in 2020. Rather, they would have been able to build a very, very committed fandom. They would have been able to stay in communication, and things would not be weird among, both the publisher, the developers, and the community right now. But these are my thoughts about all of this. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Do you think it's over for the Division? Do you think if these free-to-play models, finally drop, do you feel they're gonna be, do you feel that they're gonna take the place of what the Division and say the other Tom Clancy games are doing? I don't think that's the case. They're games that are very far off in their nature, so I don't see them as a threat in any ways. But again, let me hear your thoughts in the comment section. Talk to you all soon. Peace out.